Welcome back, guys, to Hollywood movie spoiler reviews with Big Rob, Rue, and Max. What's going on, guys? Another review of another fantastic movie in theaters, guys. Disney and Pixar's Hoppers. Now, I'll put this disclaimer right at the front of the video for all you parents out there. This is a very good, wholesome, traditional family movie. Really brings you back to Disney's roots. I really enjoyed it. What did you think, Max?
I liked it. It's been a while since I've seen an animated film like this. I thought it was very well done. We'll give you guys some of our reviews at the end. We do a star scaling review, which is basically up to 5 stars. Rarely you will see that, but nonetheless, we're going to give you guys the review from each of us, our scores at the very, very end. So stick around for some of this. We're going to get into a lot of what really stood out for us in the Hoppers film. So consider smashing the like. Let's get into this. And basically, it's like this. I want to actually start off with the opening scene. I thought that this film did an excellent job of establishing right from the get-go a sense of fun. And again, let's face it, a lot of kids are going to watch this. This is what they want. And so to establish young Mabel, and when I say young, we're talking maybe around first, second to third grade, give or take, in an elementary school. And as the movie goes further, you'll see her basically at age 19. Now, I will state this, guys, before we continue. To me, I was not believing the whole thing of she's 19. I would say 14, 15 tops. She did not appear to be 19, as they said in the film.
Yeah, I would agree. They should have made her look a little bit older if they were going for 19 years old for sure.
They had her come into the college classroom. That's the only that's the only thing that established that. And she went in and bugged the doctor. So you suit like college age.
Her behavior also didn't really indicate that she was 19 years old. Her mindset, like, I don't think she had a job or anything. I mean, there was no reference to any kind of bills being paid when her grandma was gone, and she was kind of, So I don't know. I know those things don't really matter and they're not relevant to the film, but they definitely could have made an attempt if they wanted the character to seem, 19 years old instead of 13, 14. Then definitely.
Yeah, in reality, guys, that's our only, at least for me, that's probably my only real complaint about this film. There won't be many complaints, honestly, when it comes to this film. So one thing I want to establish is that it shows very young Mabel in an elementary school, shows her teachers and so on. She's literally trying to save a turtle. And I really love what I saw there. It was really a lot of nice action, suspense. And one of the things that was really, really great, because you guys know that Disney and Pixar, they're really great with animation, special effects, even sound effects. So she's going to go for this exit and try to escape, but something happens. This part I won't spoil, but something happens in which it triggers the sprinkler system, okay, inside the school. And the effect, right? There would be a few times in this film that we're talking about some of the special effects. The effect of the sprinkler going off, I literally forgot for about roughly 5 split seconds that this film was animated. It was so well done on that visual effect of the actual sprinkler and how they slow motion that down, the water effects and so on. I said, my goodness, is this really animated? And then, of course, 5 seconds later, yeah, of course it is. But do you guys happen to remember that? I thought that was really something else before we continue.
Yes, I did like the animation. I did think, but I mean, we've come to expect a high bar when it comes to animation, especially from Pixar. And this being a Pixar Disney movie, it's not really that surprising. So thumbs up on that for sure.
Yeah, I thought that was a nice moment. And it was a really good moment, kind of establishing how much she likes animals too, along with the effects. It really established her dead set love for animals, like even as a child, and that's nice.
It was really nice. We're going to now jump into a little bit more of establishing that opening scene. So shout out to some of you kids that are watching and so on. By all means, share with us what really stood out to you. Drop in the comments. And if you're watching with your mom and dad or members of your family, we want to hear immediately in the comments from you guys as well. But I love the sense of calm that they established really, really early. So as you guys see in our layout, top right corner of your screen is the grandma. This is Mabel's grandmother. And I love how it immediately establishes the pond, the sense of being out in the country. In the film, they call this Beaverton. And of course, they call this, I believe, also the Glade. This is something that's constantly referenced in the film. Yes, great job of pulling that up, Rue. So you see here that you have Mabel, and of course, with the grandma. They also have the scene where it shows a little bit when she's just young. Mabel doesn't talk. And then finally, basically the grandmother unveils to Mabel that she did something that was kind of not a good thing for little kids to do, but there was common ground, and they had a moment. But anyway, the whole area, the sense of nature, again, it's Disney Pixar. They did a great job of making you feel like you were out in the country and you're hearing all the little bugs and all the things that Mother Nature has. And it was just so calm and so collected. I want to get some of you guys' thoughts on that, because for me, it was almost like when they jumped to all the noisy stuff, I was like, oh no, I was getting too comfortable with that.
I think that, like you said, Pixar has always been really good at establishing the bond and connection and compassion in the expressions when it comes to these moments in their films, whether it's Toy Story or anything else. They're very, very good at kind of slowing that down for those moments, for the audience to really have an understanding of the bonds between their characters and stuff like that, for sure.
I also feel like in that moment too, like I love the character development. Like I don't know if you guys noticed about me, but I did some acting. So like I really like character development, and what you really see from Mabel there is that like she's a person who can slow things down. She can handle the calm, and she can notice the environment, the nature that's happening around her. For some people, like that would be very nerve-wracking. They wouldn't even be able to they wouldn't even be able to silence what's going on in their head. But it gets you another sense of Mabel being in tune with nature. Like she's so in tune with nature that she's able to hear exactly what her grandmother is hearing in the silence and being a part of that world. And I think her grandmother even mentions like, wow, it's so easy to be calm when you realize you're a part of something big. And for her, that was being a part of something big, where someone who doesn't like nature, like, oh, like, okay, it's annoying. Like all these bugs are making sounds. But you really get the sense that Mabel is in tune, in harmony with nature.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Another thing I want to point out is, speaking of being in tune, so again, we understand some of you guys, the youngins, are watching this and so on. Thanks so much. Again, we want to hear from you guys, because you have so much of that imagination, and I think that this movie is so great for especially the younger audiences, but even as a family in whole, but especially when it comes to kids, because let's face it, you guys are able to bring out your imagination as a child more than anybody, right? And that's what the magic of having an imagination as a kid. And this movie did an excellent job of basically portraying what we're going to talk about now, is transporting Mabel, okay, her character, into what I call basically, I know it sounds kind of funny, like Matrix slash Avatar with beavers, right? So Mabel transforms herself. I should say transforms herself, but there's this character. Go down for just a minute, who is her professor, and this lady in the middle. Do you guys remember the name of the professor by any chance?
I can't remember. Yes, actually, professor's name was Dr. Sam Fairfax.
Okay, so basically, the professor, it gets unveiled what they're doing behind the scenes and so on. They're trying to get involved where they are in tune with nature by literally being among like fellow beavers, or other animals, right? Being in tune with the animals. How cool is that? Think about you as a kid. You may play with AR action figures or any of that stuff, right? And you're imagining like you're creating your own little world. This movie does a really, really excellent job of being so creative and bringing out imagination. And again, I know it sounds like a crazy analogy, but shout out to some of you guys, your moms, dads, and so on out there who watch this with your kids. Didn't it feel like it was literally Matrix slash Avatar meets Beavers? And the reason why I'm mentioning that is because you have Mabel. She gets that head thing, right? That helmet plugged into this system, right? That transporter into what you see right there as the beaver. And
well,
so
they literally make a reference to Avatar in the movie, right? She says this like Avatar, and then Fairfax gets angry. He's like, it's nothing like Avatar. I think that was just a shot across the bow as like a joke, like, yeah, it is kind of like Avatar, right?
It is kind of like Avatar, but in reality, it is a little bit like Matrix too. So one thing I loved is, again, think about this. So, if we had a dog barking and so on, it's just bark, 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 bark. But a dog, when they communicate with each other, maybe it is kind of like how we're talking for all we know. But they establish that the divisiveness or the separation between humans and the animal world and the language and so on. But anyway,
The way that
go
sorry to
ahead.
cut you off there, but the way that they make the animals look when you can understand them versus when you can't understand them, I thought was really really well done too. Right, so it's a visual representation of that kind of lack of ability to communicate. Um, so yeah, I think it just helps people kind of understand that, like, look, when they look like this, the animals would switch to having these beady little black eyes whenever you couldn't understand them, right? And I thought that was creative. So
That
Another
was
thing
creative.
that's
I'm glad you brought that up. Go ahead.
another thing that's really nice with the character development here is that Mabel's grandmother has passed, so she's basically living in her grandmother's house alone. Like the glade is the only thing that means something to her because it meant so much to her grandmother. She's not even going to her classes. Like her teacher, our teacher slash the professor there says like you should be in this class and you're not. But like she has such a love for nature, such a love for her grandmother that she's really to risk it all, literally, and get into this beaver. And like she doesn't even care about the risks. It means that much to her that she would get into this beaver and try to try to save the glade. And it's kind of funny because the first thing I thought about is like, girl, what are you doing? You're getting into this beaver. You don't even know you can get ate. And the first thing that happens is a hawk like comes and picks her up
yeah,
and says, "Hey, I gotta feed my kids." I
pond
thought that was
rules.
pretty funny.
Yeah, I love that because they immediately establish a sense of nature and how nature works and so on. Literally, it's referenced as you see there on the top left. You have the king of the beavers. His name is George. I absolutely loved the character of George. One thing we forgot to mention, and we'll mention this real quick, is why did Mabel go into this area and so on? Well, it's because she was trying to stop the mayor, his name is Jerry, Mayor Jerry, and his construction crew from blowing up the beaver dam with actual dynamite and so on. And of course, this is where Mabel learns that her professor and the associates they have developed all this research and they have this lab, and again kind of like this matrix style lab that would plug her into an actual like animatronics type of beaver, right? So as we jump down, we have Mayor Jerry that Rue just pulled up there. And there he is, yes. And I just want to notate this. I'm not trying to make it too political, but do you guys find it interesting that he literally looks like the spitting image of California Governor Gavin Newsom, right? I mean, he does.
I did a little bit of looking into that while we've been kind of doing this and stuff, because I'm looking at the cast a lot, and it's actually he's actually played by John Hamm, right? I don't know if you know that. And one thing I've noticed, because I've got stills of all of the characters side by side with the actors who voiced them over, and they are all actually look like cartoon representations of the real actors. So he actually looks a lot like if you show my screen here really briefly. Sorry, Rue, to move your stuff, but if you look at that, it kind of looks exactly like John Hamm, right?
I'm
I
going to
just
disagree with you on that one, man. You know what it is? It's because every time I see John Hamm, I literally think of basically his character of Draper, right? In Mad Men, right? Don Draper. I will always see Don Draper. So that's just me.
Yeah, but I mean, the point I'm getting at though is if you look at the cartoon characters, the animated characters, they're very clearly designed from the actual actors. I mean, if you look at Piper Curda, I mean George, right, and Bobby, um, same thing here, right? Kathy and Dr. Sam Fairfield, they're kind of Meryl Streep as the queen of the insects. I'm just saying that they're, except for of course you've got Dave Franco. Did you realize the names that were in this cast? Dave Franco, Meryl Streep, like
No, I
unbelievable.
wasn't until I saw the credits. I had some people sit next to me and they pointed out like, oh my gosh, Meryl Streep and some of these other characters and so on. But that was super interesting and awesome in that right to see the crossover of some of these legendary actors and actresses being part of this, right? So anyway, great catch. But yeah, for me, it just he looks like Gavin Newsom. Anyway, real.
Yeah, he looks a lot like Gavin Newsom to me too. I have to say, but
Yeah.
yeah, that's yeah.
Another thing I want to point out was it takes place, as in the film, in Beaverton. I grew up in Portland, Oregon. We know that basically Beaverton, Oregon is towards the West Hills, basically like Cedar Hills area of Portland. Basically, if you're from Portland, you know how the middle of the city is divided by the Willamette River. And then west of that, of course, you have, Old Town and downtown Portland. So when you look at the film, when you're watching the film, again, there's Beaverton, and of course you have the pond and what they refer to as the glade. And we find out that there's this big old speaker system, and I'm sure you guys have seen it too in your area, especially here in Phoenix. We can go down many streets and you look up and you see a palm tree that doesn't look like a regular palm tree. It looks really artificial, and it has like a cell phone tower. So one of the things that Mayor Jerry implemented was a speaker system that only the animals can hear, and it causes the animals to want to go away from that area. And when Mabel is transported into the world of the animals with the beavers and so on, she can't hear what the animals can hear. Why? Because she's naturally human. She's just in that, I guess you could say, robotic form of an animal. So just because she's in that form doesn't mean she, again, has that type of hearing. And then she notices from George and all the other beavers and animals that, like, yeah, this is why we're leaving that noisy area. Because to her, Mabel, she's like, what noisy area? I can't hear that. I thought they did a good job of establishing why the animals left. You guys have any comments about that?
Well, even before that, let's get back to what Rob mentioned about the whole pond rules. The whole reason that she met George and got herself in this situation is that she did something that was against the animal kingdom, and then they figure out that they're like kings and queens of the animal kingdom, and George happens to be the king of the mammals. And she's still on her task, which is saving the glade. And then we get to the part that Max is talking about here, where they're like, "Oh, the glade? You mean the noisy place?" And she figures out that, hey, there's noise coming from these artificial trees, and she's so gung ho about it, and she's so mad at George that she's like, "I'm gonna go up there," and she's like, and they're like, "Hey, squirrels, beavers can't climb trees," but she somehow climbs it, and long story short, there she gets the tree down.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. Rob, I know you want to chime in on that, but I think if anything, we only got a taste of what she can climb. If you guys remember, before the sprinkler went off in the opening scene where she basically is trying to save the turtle and puts the turtle in her backpack, she is actually kind of climbing up, not trees, but she's climbing up teachers, right? I thought they should have showed maybe just a glimpse of like her climbing up an actual tree. I guess if you're going to be critical, that was a missed opportunity. But anything that stood out there for you, Rob?
No, I mean, I think it was creative story wise and stuff. I got to keep giving credit to the actual writing of the storyline for the movie, along with the great animation. So yeah, and
I
then
thought,
they incorporate the trees later in the movie, the fake tree, right? They incorporate that into the big bad at the end of the movie, and how he's trying to use it for nefarious means.
Yeah. Another thing that I think we should talk about is throughout the movie, other than just trying to make it look like, oh, it's all about pro animals, pro environment, and so on, there is constant references from the actual animals stating that, hey, look, basically humans can be good too. And of course, we'll come full circle, especially when it comes to the mayor, because at first it seems like he's just such a bad person, and he's the quote unquote villain, and he's causing all these problems. But it shows.
He's got
What's
a
that?
great story. The mayor has a great story arc for sure.
Yeah, and one thing I do like about the film as we go further into it, it tells you to never give up on anybody, really, right? And it does teach good values even as kids. I know a lot of you kids maybe struggle with, for example, you see other kids maybe on the playground or around you or in your neighborhood or wherever, where you feel as though, man, I don't like this particular person, and so on. But you got to realize that at the same time that, like the movie points out, none of us are 100% bad. And I think they established that so well of realizing that by the time you get to the end, that even this person, right, in this case, Mayor Jerry, he ends up being what, good. And of course, that's a little bit of spoiler ahead of time, but we're going to get into that. The other thing I want to point out real quick before we move on is I thought that the film had great facial expressions. I thought, personally speaking, that Mabel had some of the best facial expressions of all the characters outside of the animal characters. Of course, the animals have excellent facial expressions. Come on, this is Disney, Pixar we're talking about. But as you see here, the character of Mabel, so many scenes of her doing the shocked eye look or smiling, extreme happiness, sadness, but really, really dramatic facial expressions. They did an excellent job on that.
Yeah, it goes back to great animation for sure.
Yep.
And I loved how the storyline evolved into, okay, well, we gotta protect the animals. Felt like they had to protect themselves from the humans. Like, at first, only George really felt like, hey, the humans are a part of our, what we're doing too, and nobody really kind of felt like that. The animals really were just like, okay, well, we got our thing over here, and we'll just control what we can control. And then Mabel's like, no, 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 no. These humans, they're a threat to you. And if you keep it up, what if all of these trees come into your environments? And then that's when all heck breaks loose, and we have the council come on to the scene. And I really loved this character of the queen bee. And I thought it was really, really interesting. Like, it looks kind of like a monarch butterfly, but I thought it was very, very interesting. They give it these eyes on the wings. And this is kind of something that in nature, supposedly, like in nature, an animal evolves to have these kind of
Looks
things
like a
where
big face.
go ahead.
It looks like a big face to scare predators away.
Right, exactly. Animals evolve to have these like kind of protections to scare predators away. But I think there's a little bit more here too, because she's like the queen of the insects, right? Um, and she was kind of a kind of a mean character. So this kind of makes her even more foreboding because she has these eyes that are just like staring and a little menacing. And to be honest, she really did provoke Mabel. And when Mabel crushed her, I mean,
Well, they did the way that they did it was important. They did it in a way that was instinctual, right? Because you got to remember that Mabel is a human, right, in a beaver's body. And what happens as a human instinctually when there is a bug continuing to buzz in your face like that is to go whap, right? And it's not for beavers or animals, but that's why I think you had the shock value from all the animals when it happened. They were like, oh, because like animals don't do that, right? But a human is just like wham, and then she smears her body on the wall behind her.
And
that's
there
a
was no
great
shock.
point, Rob.
Was
Yeah,
that?
there was no shock factor either. By all means, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, it was a great point, Robin. But she was very shocked that she did it. She was like, oh my God, I can't do that here, but it's already done. Let me just wipe this right away, like nobody saw it. And absolutely not.
Well, I'll tell you this. I took my 5-year-old son to the movie to watch this one, and what I can say is that he was way into the movie, howling, laughing, yelling. When the shark smashes through the dam, it's just like screaming, "He broke through the dam!" So, from a kid's perspective, which is what I brought, it was my son would have he wanted to watch it again on the Android box when we got home because we just watched it now. He watched it with dad, and then he wanted to go watch it with mom. He wanted to make mom watch it with him, so it was a hit with him.
Yeah, I didn't feel like there was any shock factor as far as the audience because naturally, again, back to what you guys said, that's something that a human would do. But I do like that Disney slash Pixar, they recognize how there'd be a shock factor for the animals because animals don't do that. That was very, very well portrayed. And that was a great moment because the audience absolutely roared on that one. That was the defining moment of the movie where we had the biggest laughs and everybody just loved that scene. I did too. And speaking of which, let's transition over to the flying shark. Her name was Diane, or was it Diana? No, it's Diane. So Diane, the shark. I saw that and I said to myself, "Oh man, kids are gonna love this. Heck, if I love it as an adult, who isn't going to love it, right? So anything that's huge, think about it. Like, again, kids, you love great big dinosaurs, right? Well, in this, a flying shark, how is that done, right? And so they show the reference back to what Rue was talking about at the beginning, where I believe, was it Rue, either pelicans or seagulls or a combination of some of those type of birds, originally took or dived in, grabbed basically Mabel when she was in beaver form to bring her to get ate. And then we also forgot to mention one of those bears, right? So there it is, actually, right there, where right below that, if you go further down, it shows the bear bringing Mabel to, of course, where she broke the pond rule. There it is, right there, next to the butterfly on the left. Yep, right there. So yeah, this was another fun character in my opinion. No, he didn't eat Mabel or anything like that. The smart remarks he made, like, I can't eat that. It's ready ruined. It has personality. I'm too. It was kind of like, I'm too attached to that. Like, this is not normal food anymore. It's just, that was cool. But anyway, let's get back to the flying shark, Diane. So again, when they showed this flying shark, and again going after Mayor Jerry, what was it, down on like on the highway, right? Just bursting through stuff. All this, I just said to myself, this is a fun scene, and it established a new direction for where the film was actually going. Right? It's kind of like, where are we going to go with this? And again, even the mayor, he at one point thought it was a dream. He's like, no problem. It's going to go to sleep now. This is just all a giant dream, because he couldn't believe it.
Yeah, I think that was quite funny, and the way that they set it up so nicely, because like you're kind of like suspending belief, because like, can like a whole bunch of seagulls really make a shark fly? But that also goes into, oh yeah, the mayor's like, oh, this is a dream. Yeah, there's no way that seagulls are lifting a shark, right? And then the whole, like, I don't know if the word's irony but Diane, like, to have it be this really nice girl voice and not like this
Bruce from Little Nemo, Finding
right,
Nemo.
like, not like Patrick Warburton or somebody that's like authoritative, or like a really authoritative man voice. It's this like really polite, like woman who's like, hey, hi, mister, yeah, I guess it's time to eat you right now.
You might feel a slight pinch in this biting sensation.
Like it was like, okay, well, this is just business. Like it's just business. We're not, you know what I mean? Decision had been made, and you're just gonna die right now. So we're gonna send Diane, and Diane knows how to do this in a humane way. Well, yeah, sir. We're gonna kill you. We're gonna eat you, and like Rob was saying, yeah, you might feel a slight biting sensation, and that'll be it. It was almost like she was like a calming nurse. You know what I mean? They sent Nurse Diane to give like the little kid a shot.
That's a great analogy. I love that. That's a great analogy, Nurse Diane. And let's face it, Diane is not your typical, great white shark. I think she is literally like a megalodon crossed with like a whale. She's like the biggest whale shark species there is out there. And the way they had the what is that, seagulls, if I'm not mistaken, something like that. Yeah. The way these birds bring her in. I mean, a flying shark. What kid is not going to love this? What adult's not going to love that? I love seeing Diane. One thing I forgot to mention was at the beginning of the movie they had the spider, which was symbolic to Charlotte's Web, and they got rid of her, and we never saw her again. That's my only disappointment, but we did see a lot of Diane, which was cool.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, there was potential there with that character, but...
All right, well, moving along, let's jump into a little bit more of what we have here, and before we wrap it up, something I wanted to basically discuss was the Titus character. I don't know if you could bring that up on us still. Let's try to see if we can pull that up, and...
No time.
Let me remove this. That's all right. We'll just describe them. So the caterpillar. So the caterpillar is Titus, and we know that Titus got really upset in that council meeting because Titus didn't like the idea that his mom was squished. So he's trying to get revenge. And at some point, as you see here, there's Mayor Jerry. There's a scene in which Titus somehow goes to the lab, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe I'm a little fuzzy on this one. Quote me on this. But Titus transforms himself into Mayor Jerry, takes over his body.
No, he gets his consciousness put in a robot body of Jerry.
That's right. My bad. And basically, it's kind of like a Frankenstein monster version of all this. But again, he poses as Jerry, and some of the moments he makes in regard to like the campaign rally, he's just like, "How's it feel?" He's like, "Hello, fellow humans. How's it feel to be human?" They're all looking at him like, "What is this guy talking about?" You know, and he constantly references like squishing and stuff. And again, I thought that was a pretty cool scene. And then, speaking of which, obviously, Titus. There's a scene in which Titus is, I guess, among the other council members. So like the King Toad or the King Frog or whoever, just because it's Mother Nature, the King Frog, it's like slurp, grabs Titus, pulls him down, he's done.
Gone. Yeah.
Gone. Boom. It was just like, that was an established character, but just like that, all these characters, because they're bugs or whatever, they could be gone instantly. Want to get some of you guys' thoughts on that, because I thought that was really well executed.
I definitely saw that. I definitely saw that coming. The frog nabbing him he's right beside him while he's ranting, and I'm like, oh, that frog's just gonna go wham. And then, sure enough, there he was, right?
Really well played. Of course, like I don't know if frogs eat insects, but it's like the animal kingdom, right? And it was like the exact same rule that George kind of established a little bit. Like, if you got to eat, you eat. But like, it's just like, okay, this guy needs to shut up. Let me just, all right, you're gone.
Frog, you say you don't know if frogs eat insects?
Yeah, I
don't have any, I guess you probably don't have any. Yeah, frogs eat other frogs. Frogs eat like anything. They're crazy, especially bullfrogs. But
you know, something we didn't touch on a lot was the character of George the beaver. They did a great job with that. I thought that the moments that were shared between Mabel and, of course, George, it almost seemed as though that George was almost like the father, I guess you could say, she never had. And he taught her a sense of forgiveness and finding out the good inside of a person. That was really well executed, I thought.
Yeah, father figure. I agree, 100%. And he was funny too. He was very funny. He had the father figure part comes from his morality, I think, right? Even though he knows that he's walking into certain doom or certain potential doom, he's still going to go do the right thing at the end of the day.
Yeah, of all the supporting characters, I have to say, was probably my favorite one.
Yeah, he's the father, but also he's kind of like the love interest, which is kind of interesting. And he really did, like, from the start, he loved Mabel. Like, he was really like enamored with her. Like, hey, look at you! You can, like, you're a go-getter out here, which is kind of interesting. You know what I mean? Like, he's being he's the king. He's making all the rules, but he really liked fierce Mabel. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he believed in her, right? And that's where I feel the father figure kind of comes from, right? Is that he had faith in her. He believed that that she could do anything. And I felt that it's funny you say the romance relationship, because I kind of felt that was the only thing kind of missing from the movie. And I know that we've seen, zooming out, we've seen a lot of people complain, not a lot, but I guess the minority complain about having a romance where a female lead doesn't need a male lead, or whatever the case might be in these kind of movies. And it's like, you know what, it's really not that deep. It's just telling a good story at the end of the day, and I felt that was missing from the story.
Really, people complained about that because he tried to marry.
Not in this movie, broadly, right? Across these kind of movies, as in general, you'll see people say, well, a female lead doesn't need a romantic interest and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And I just think that you're just, if that's a complaint, I think that you're just thinking about it a little bit too deep, right? We're just trying to make good, wholesome family movies here. We're not trying to, reinvent the wheel or anything. So, if that makes sense, I don't know. I felt that the love interest was missing from the movie. The whole, I guess that some people are tired of the damsel in distress kind of thing, but you don't necessarily have to have that angle, right? I mean, look at Shrek. There was a love interest, but by no means was what's her name, Princess, whatever her name is in the movie there, Shrek's love interest. She was by no means a damsel in distress. She was a butt kicking, lead female actor in the movie. So
I would disagree with you there. I feel like the love interest was there, but like you said, it wasn't the damsel in distress love interest. Yeah. It was like, okay, he loved her because she was willing to be kind of fierce. And like the moment she saved the glade and all that, and he was like, okay, well, I want you to be the paw of the king, but understand that the Paul the King also, you know,
Can
you
I just
gotta
can
you
I
gotta
just
marry me.
can I just say how much I loved that uh, Game of Thrones reference? That was so amazing that they threw that in there. Paw of the King is hand. I don't know if you guys know much about Lord
Oh,
Yeah, yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. The hand
I
of
haven't gotten
the
into the
king. The
prequel
hand of the king.
series. Haven't gotten to the prequel series, but I absolutely love Game of Thrones.
I
Of course, I didn't like the ending, but I love Game of Thrones.
Yeah, I thought that was a good throwback reference to Game
Right.
of
So the
Thrones.
hand of the king, paw of the king. Yep, absolutely. I agree with that. Would you guys like to get into talking about the ending of this film and what stood out to you?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I felt it could have done other things with the ending, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. I thought that it was a good wrap up. I liked the completion of the character arc for the mayor, how he comes around and he ends up wanting to renovate the park or the pond area now to make it so that man had never been there instead of trying to bulldoze it to build a highway. So his character arc is complete and he ends up working with Mabel at the end. But they still bicker the whole time. They have that comedy little. They still don't like each other. There's still that that butting heads. And then to see her go sit on the same stone that she sat on with her grandmother with George at the end to have that family connection. And he's beaver, beaver, you know, log pile, log pile. He's hitting the phone still. I think that was a great way to wrap it up personally.
It was nice. I think it was a little bittersweet because like there was some love between the two of them, but you're right. They sat on the same rock that the grandmother and her sat on. So it was more of the kind of like you said, the father-ish part of the relationship showing up again there. But you could tell she had love for him, but there's that strange tension between love and father relationship with those two characters. It's interesting.
And then they were able to just appreciate all the sounds and the community of the pond that she shared with her grandmother with George. So
Something I'd like to add in regard to my thoughts about the ending. I thought the ending was pretty darn good. I like the idea that if you think about like every movie for the most part that has a focus on saving animals, whether it's non-animated movies, again, think about it, it's saving animals, saving the environment, et cetera, right? But in this film, literally the ending is how the animals saved us. And I thought they
yeah,
did an excellent job of portraying that. And of course, that was turning the tide. That was literally metaphorical, right? Because literally you see water splashing in, and that tide of putting out the fire that was going to set Beaverton on fire and ruin the whole town and all the houses and so on. It's like, yeah, the animals saved us, and so that was turning the tide, and especially turning the tide for uh, humbling himself, as in Mayor Jerry, to realize, look, I need to make some changes. So when they show that scene where it shows the construction workers, they're back at the glade. Um, for a moment there, you almost think, oh no, he's still going to be bad. But then he's just like, he looks over at Mabel, as in Mary Jared, and he's just like, let's get this place back to you know, where it
like
was untouched. Yeah, like we're never here. And I was like, all right, right on, right on. And so here's my thing. You know, let's all come back into the frame on this one. Let's have a discussion on this. Let's wrap it up. For me personally, uh, we will get into just two quick things real quick before we do our reviews. I want to point out to everybody, I'm one of the three in this panel that did sit for the end screen credits. So there's two end screen credits for you guys. There's one that's roughly about 2 minutes into it that shows a really cool scene of the bear, obviously, you know, the beavers, et cetera, in the forest. You don't want to miss that. That one's real quick. And a great opportunity. In another film that we just did, which was we talked about missed opportunities. In this film, they did a wonderful job on capturing an opportunity. So, if you guys can recall, there was the old man who it seems as though he's going to sign the petition for Mabel in regard to, you know, making her feel good, like, hey, right on, I got the petition. Anyway, now he writes down milk, eggs, and bread, and she's kind of disappointed, right? Well, anyway, very, very end screen credits, an Easter egg, call it whatever you want for you guys, is they capitalized on that. It wasn't a missed opportunity. They showed the old man, he opens the door, and it shows the queen ant. She waves her wand. It shows her little queen crown, and then she snaps her fingers, and basically a bunch of ants bring the bread, the milk, the eggs, etc., as well as some other animals. And that was a really, really cool moment to come full circle back to saying, hey, we didn't just put in some filler into this film and didn't come back. Technically, you did it with who I refer to as Charlotte and Charlotte's Web with the Spider, but you didn't miss the opportunity on that. That was great. So if end screen credits is your thing, you're not going to be disappointed in that. Okay, finally, let's give you guys the review. For me, personally speaking, since we do up to 5 stars, you rarely see 5 stars from us. I give this film, I know it sounds crazy, I give it a 3.7 out of 5. For me, a 4 is a very, very high score. And the reason why I do that is this. I feel as though that there's great replayability for this, especially for kids. But I have to look at it the broader perspective for even adults. For adults, you may like the idea that you're going to watch it numerous times again with your kids and so on. I think you as an adult, you're going to like the idea that it does have that imagination. They did a really good job with it. Just for me personally, I still feel as though I've seen better Disney Pixar movies like your Toy Stories, etc., etc. And there's no knock on this film, but I give it a 3.7. I'm not willing to say that this is a masterpiece, but there is room to expand. I totally see them as in these studios, where it's Disney Pixar, doing sequels with this. For when I see it's really done well at the box office and so on, but there's a few little missing elements of this that I felt as though that they could have had to put it over the edge, where I feel as though it deserves a 4. Like in reality, a 4 is like almost like a masterpiece in my opinion. Wasn't quite there yet. So I give this a 3.7 out of 5, and I feel as though that's a good rating. That's where I'm going with. I'm not willing to go to 4, but I'm giving it a 3.7 out of 4.
I'll give it a 3.2. I honestly, I'm going to be the contrarian here. I didn't like the ending. And you mentioned the whole thing about the love story, Rob. And honestly, yeah, like I felt it was a little bittersweet to me that her and George, like she accomplished her goal. She got what she wanted, the glade, and she saved it for her grandmother. But her and George, like now she gets to love George as the animal, but their relationship, human and animal, that's the only relationship they have, right? Where I do think there was an actual kind of love there, but now maybe that's part 2, right? But right now, it's just a human and the animal, and that was a little bittersweet for me. So I'm gonna go 3.2 because of that.
Yeah, I think that it definitely was missing the love interest aspect, especially to close everything up. For me personally, I liked the animation. I liked the cast. I loved the storyline. I loved the little Easter eggs, right, to Game of Thrones and stuff like that. So all that stuff was great. Um, I love the fact that it was a traditional family movie, a throwback to a traditional family movie that was very, very big for me. Um, so I really liked that. And like Max said, playability, like one and done or not. This is a movie. As soon as we got home, my son wanted to watch it again with his mom immediately after, right? So playability wise, yes, this movie will probably be on in the background in my household. I'm sure time and time and time again. But outside of that, what I give it, I'm gonna have to go with three even. I'm gonna go 3 even on it. It didn't jump out at me as a spectacular movie, but they did keep things wholesome. They kept today's politics out of the movie, and yeah, the story was good. So 3 stars.
Well, there you guys have it. If we give 3 or higher, it's actually a decent review. So we're not saying it's a bad film and so on, but there is the average weighted rating out of 5 for you guys. And so closing comments from Rob in regard to other particular shows that we're looking to see, or some suggestions moving forward for our channel that we're bringing to you guys.
Yes, we actually are. The next movie we're going to be reviewing is, I believe, is Project Hail Mary, right? Ryan Gosling movie. We will be reviewing the trailer for that one coming up next weekend. And if you guys have requests on movies that you want us to review, we can check out the trailers and then we can review the movies. Make sure you put your requests in the comment section, guys. We try to be as broad as we can with the genres of movies, right? We're not stuck in one genre. So whatever it is you want us to review, and as time moves on here, guys, as the channel starts to grow, what we're going to be doing is we will have a private community where we will have open mics for you guys, the listeners, to be able to join the conversation and give your thoughts on whether you agree with us, you disagree with us, or maybe we missed something in the movie that you saw and you want to talk about it, right? So we will be doing that stuff as well, because we want to have interaction and engagement with you guys as well. We want to know your opinions on these things too. So yeah, looking forward to it.
Well, there you guys have it. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you guys in the next review. Over and out. Bye-bye.
God bless.
Peace.